All right, welcome to old school. We got an old school for you guys. A little bit of news sprinkled in though. Cenk Uygur, Ben Mankiewicz, Wozny Lambre, the Wizard of Woz. So reporting for duty, sir. There you go. There you go.
I gotta move my light. I mean, this is the whitest I've ever looked, right? I mean, it's glaring. So just bear with me. I mean, I got it.
He's literally gonna move his light to look less white.
I thought that was a black joke.
Yeah, no, it's no, it was definitely a black and Muslim joke. It was too much, and I resent both of you for it.
You know what though?
Christ, yeah.
All right, number one, congrats. We're a Benetton commercial. Going old school with that reference. But yeah. I look really brown and you look really white.
Yeah, no, this is alarming. Woz, I've never met you, but it's nice. It's nice to meet you, and I'm familiar with your work. So,
thank you so much. So am I.
Nice to be here on the show with you.
You know, Woz, today, this is old school. It's sponsored by twostrongcoffee.com/TYT. Sponsored by shoptyt.com. You get it. Let's move on. So Woz, today one of the guys in the crew was saying, you know, I was so psyched when Woz wound up being a contributor here because I used to follow him. And I'm like, oh, and he's like, that's Woz, man. And I was like, all right, cool. So Woz is at theringer.com now, and Craig followed you on the sports stuff. He also does a podcast called Woke Bros with Nando Vila, who's also on the show regularly. So because you know why? Because they're both woke. We like woke folks,
exactly.
as opposed to sleep folks. We're against that. Ben, I think you've improved it by getting much closer to the camera.
Hang on. I'm messing with the camera settings. I couldn't bear it. I was not gonna do the rest of the show looking that ill.
Okay, Ben, you're.
It's remarkable that white people were ever able to seize power as they have throughout the world, given how horrific we look most of the time. That's instant take. It's a quick take.
It's a hot take.
It's a hot take. There you go.
Yeah. So you're ironically doing the opposite of what Time Magazine did to OJ. Right. You're trying to darken your skin, or it's in a sense it's the opposite, in a sense it's the same. Anyways, now get a load of this amazing connection. Woz used to work at the Athletic, and Ben loves the Athletics.
Yes, that's right. I am what is it now? 23 and 20. I'm a 44-year dedicated Oakland A's fan. In fact, I'm going to guess that if you are tuning into something as you do the show, given your work, there's some chance you're watching the conclusion of the Hawks and the Sixers. I'm in the top of the second of the A's and the Angels. Most of the country, I'm watching the A's and the Angels.
Open to that game right now as we speak.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's the Sixers, not the A's and the Angels. Nobody
but me is paying attention to the A's. By the way, nothing top second, just in case you guys are worried.
No, I don't mind you talking about that all day because that's not going to draw a single viewer away from us.
I think we're probably all right in that regard.
Okay, guys, I got fun stories about is 5th grade graduation a thing or not. But I just opened up the news real quick in between the 8 shows I'm doing today, and saw a fun story. So it actually kind of fits to a theme that a lot of you are aware of, and one I'm slightly obsessed with lately, which is what are we gonna do when we have all of these different alternate realities? It's almost like a Marvel comic universe with the madness of the multiverse. Ben, I know I lost you. Woz, you're younger, I probably kept you a little bit. You know Dr. Strange is coming out. So anyway, but we have all these different timelines, but in this case, it's different realities. But I found one today that is super fun. His name is Jason Riddle, and he does something important for us. It turns out there is something called objective reality, and you can actually be away from it and then realize it. And then his line about the insurrection is just awesome. Okay, so Jason Riddle was one of the guys that raided the Capitol, and as you'll see, he's a character. He goes in, breaks in. I guess he brought a bottle of wine because he drank wine when he was there. I mean, how is that for a bougie revolution when you bring wine to your revolt? And although to be fair, probably the French did it as well. And then he stole some stuff, and so he's super mad at Ann Custer, who's the U.S. rep from New Hampshire, where he's from. So he's decided he's going to run against her, and he's on talking to a reporter, Catherine Underwood, and he says, "Man, I'm so mad at that Democrat. I'm gonna get her and stuff." And that's why I'm running for state representative. And then Underwood says, Custer is not a state representative. She's a United States representative. Okay. And then here's how that conversation goes. Riddle, I thought Ann was a state representative. Underwood, no. A state rep is in the state house in Concord. Riddle, yeah, that's what Ann is. Underwood, no. She's in Washington. Riddle, oh, well, I guess I got to run against that then.
Well, sounds like he's going to be a formidable opponent. Yeah.
But you know what? Who knows? Maybe he wins.
That's how I do at Subway when they run out of the Italian and herb roll that I like to get. I go, well, I guess I'll just get the multi-grain one. Just give me that one. I guess I'll go with that's how I treat my Subway orders. How this guy decides to run for United States Congress. Protected democracy, y'all.
It is. I mean, we don't really get a full sense. I mean, the Louis Gohmerts and the Marjorie Taylor Greens and the Lauren Bobberts give us a flash of the dumbing down of America. And Lord knows there are dumb people on the other side. I don't want to pretend otherwise. But there's a special breed of ignorance that's running through the country and being elected to higher to significant office. But it's in the legislatures around the country where there are just some people who are, aggressively ill-informed. I mean, here's a guy who called a press conference, right? I mean, brought somebody out to announce his run for office and does not understand the office he's running from. And it's not like I'm about to excuse the acceptable mistake, which is where I thought you were headed, of the state legislature versus the state Senate, which you really shouldn't give a pass on, but at least, again, right. That's still part overall of state government, but to miss it entirely is, and that's where all these people came from, or most of them came from, right? Was the core of their work began in state houses across the country, where on one hand there are some people who are dramatically ill-informed, on the other hand it is a testament to the impressive groundwork that Republicans have done that Democrats didn't do. Well, we lost, what was it? What's the numbers? 1,000 seats or 1,100 seats, right? Under while Barack Obama was president of the United States.
Yeah, we lost about 1,000 in a 10-year period, 8 of which was under Obama. And the guys winning those seats were people like Jason Riddle, who didn't even know what they're running for.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, but I liked it. He at least was like, okay, I will now acknowledge reality and I'll run for the right office. I went through the trouble of trying to run for this office, just missed it, that it wasn't the office I was looking for. But you know what? Okay, I'll run for the right one. Because at this point, I feel like 8 out of 10 right wingers in that situation would be like, nope, it's the state Senate. I'm gonna run for that. And it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
And the best part is that his constituents won't even care, right? It's like this guy doesn't even know. He just knows he's against this lady and he needs to run against her. He doesn't know what her job is, why she's bad at it. He just knows he's against her and he doesn't need to know anything else. And none of his constituents will give a damn. They're just gonna be like, yeah, sure, let's do it.
Yeah, because why is he doing it? He's doing it to own the libs. Why will everybody vote for him who's conservative? To own the libs. Doesn't matter which lib and which seat. None of that matters. But wait, there's more. two more fun things about my friend Jason Riddle here. Number one, if he does win, he's barred from entering Washington, D.C. because he's a dangerous criminal. So since he raided the Capitol in DC, he literally cannot enter DC, let alone the Capitol, if he were to become a US congressperson.
Well, so maybe he's right. Maybe he's going to have to do most of his legislating from Concord. That is, man, that is something, man. We live in a strange time, and it's just I'm sure like everybody else, I'm inured to it. Like, I mean, I don't know whether this guy has any serious chance, right? I mean, I hope not, but he might, right? We don't know.
No, but that's the thing, Ben. One, truth doesn't matter anymore. Reality doesn't matter. But number two, your policy positions are a joke. No one cares. Unless you're a progressive, then people care. Then people care a lot what your policy positions are. But outside of progressives, really, for a corporate Democrat, you're a Democrat, good enough. Let's go, right? And for Republicans, you want to own the libs. You don't like black, brown people or overly white people like Ben. Whatever. Yeah, I'm in. Let's go.
I think you're making it. You're being too harsh. It's not that they don't like black or brown people. They like them fine. They just don't want them voting. And I think there's a difference. And I think it's a distinction we ought to make, right?
There's no citizenship. It's cool to be here, Jink.
Yeah, it's fine, right?
They liked it back in 1862. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, right. Yeah, well, it worked out better then.
Yeah. No, but by the way, I have not yet gotten to the best part of the talented Mr. Riddle.
Okay, great, nice, good. So you were saving that one.
Yeah. So the reporter Catherine Underwood asks, "What does being at the riot do for your campaign?" And he answers, "It tells them I show up."
Yeah, sure.
Well, that's true. That's true. He does show up. You need a riot, Jason's gonna be there for you.
You know, so
with his bottle of wine, by the way.
We had on Turner Classic Movies, we had a specific event scheduled for Father's Day, which fell through. And so sort of as we were figuring out how we were gonna program that night, which is obviously coming up as we tape this, as we shoot this, it's only 6 days away. Back in 8 years ago, my father was on TCM with me for Father's Day. It was great. It was terrific. About a year before my dad died, and if you don't know, my dad was spent a lifetime in Democratic politics, and George McGovern's campaign manager, co-ran the campaign, Bobby Kennedy's press secretary, president of NPR, ran for the legislature, lost. He lost a lot, but he was a fairly significant name for a time in Democratic politics, and he came on and he programmed 2 of the 4 movies he programmed were going to run on Father's Day, and All the King's Men, which is really about Huey Long. They call him Willie Stark in the movie, but it's Huey Long. And then The Last Hurrah, which is this John Ford picture with Spencer Tracy about a fictional mayor of Austin. And they're 2 of the best political movies you could ever see. They're great, they're phenomenal, they're incredibly realistic about politics. And there's corruption for the Huey Long character, but the corruption is always about, the corruption is never to line his pockets. Right, it may be to hold power, right? But he never got rich. That was the thing about Huey Long. He didn't profit off it. In fact, many of his policies were revolutionary and incredibly progressive, right? And of course, he got shot. And then the Spencer Tracy movie, The Last Hurrah, which you guys should definitely see, and I know you haven't seen it because nobody's seen it. The same thing, like there's horse trading and there's some ugliness about politics, right? And having to lie to this group and say you're gonna do something because he's gonna screw them over, but he needs to do something that ultimately is good, right? And so it exposes some of the ugliness, but he's not a bad person at all, and he's a very effective mayor. And like, it doesn't matter, man. Politics got so bad-mouthed. Understandably, we know the well got poisoned, right? But there was something to it, and it was, my dad was always proud of being in politics, and he worked for a couple of great guys, men he admired. But man, it is the notion that a guy like Jason Riddle could run for a seat like the fake Spencer Tracy had The Last Hurrah. It is stunning to me. And there were always There were always shameless sort of self-promoters and penny ante used car salesmen. But man, it's out of control. You're right. Your views don't matter. They don't matter at all. And forget views. It's your ability to craft legislation, your ability to get there and make life better for regular people. It doesn't matter. It's been completely lost. And I don't know, it's just super depressing. And I think of it only because I was writing the scripts for the intros to those movies and the conversations with my dad last night.
Yeah, to me, the politics of it is definitely depressing, but more depressing is the alternate realities, because that's a hard thing to put back together again. Once Humpty Dumpty falls off that wall, they're not even watching the same stuff. They're not getting the same information. I talked about this last week. One of the folks who works at TYT, his dad saw a picture online of Ilhan Omar training with Al Qaeda, and he's like, "Oh, I can't believe she's an enemy of the United States, and we got to get rid of her." And our guy was like, "No, Dad, no, that's a fake picture. That's not true." And he's like, "Really?" They really don't know. They really don't know. It's amazing. So it's a dark place, man. I mean, look,
another thing you gotta realize too, Cenk, with 45's presidency is that nothing really happened until the pandemic, right? Like they passed their tax cut. They jailed a couple of Mexican kids at the border, and they were basically like the country, the machinery of it all kind of went chugging along. So it's not like any hard lessons were learned from, electing a clown to the most powerful office in the world. Like nothing really terrible happened. So I don't know, not to say that COVID isn't horrible, but I don't think those people see that as a failure of Donald Trump's presidency at all. So I don't know that any of this changes, because let's face it, there haven't been any real consequences to this foolishness.
No, none. There's no consequence to Bush. There's no consequence to Trump. All right, so I can go on about that, but I don't want to.
It's funny, the consequence to Bush is Trump to some extent. Like, I mean, it's not the consequences were felt by the mainstream of the Republican Party, right? Who suddenly couldn't control this. But then they've decided from a power point of view, they figured out, well, we'll just get on board with this, right? And F George Will, like we don't need those guys, right? We never did, right? So that's who paid the price. That's the only consequence there's been.
Right, and look, there's disinformation campaigns now from every quarter. And so I don't want to get into the so-called left, whatever. I don't want to get into that topic. But I'll tell you this: in the midst of one of the stories we did today, there's a report in the Guardian about how the governments of Honduras and Azerbaijan are doing fake news on American social media to affect Americans' view of Honduras and Azerbaijan. Now, let me ask you this, as I said on the show today.
Are Honduras and Azerbaijan working together on this? Because that's got to be their first sort of group effort. That's got to be that's an alliance I don't think anybody saw coming.
No, I don't think so. But in terms of an alliance that people saw, no way. If all they need is one more country and they could have an axis.
Totally.
So
an axis of really? Huh.
Yeah, that's right. Honduras, Azerbaijan, and Micronesia.
No, totally. Yeah.
The axis of really.
Yeah. Oh, good for them. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. And the question I asked is, if Azerbaijan is manipulating our social media with lots of fake accounts, you think maybe other countries are too? Or you think that's far-fetched? So,
I mean, have you ever been on Twitter, Cenk? It's all freaking bots and fake accounts and algorithmic sort of responses to anything. Like they put you on a list and those bots come after you, once you touch a certain type of topic. So no, I wouldn't be surprised if, American oligarchs weren't doing this too.
Oh yeah, by the way, that's the other thing. No, look, I've said this before, so I swear it. Last thing, then let's move on because I got other fun topics. But my Twitter mentions is a petri dish. And like just my Twitter mentions alone can get you an excellent PhD thesis on bots and trolls because I got them all. I got the fake left, I got the right wing, I got the corporate Democrats, I got everyone, and you can tell which ones are bots. Okay, the establishment Dems, when you criticize Manchin or Sinema or Coons or Biden, they all come in and they come in with the same talking point. Their favorite talking point is, why don't you unionize TYT? They don't update their points at all. Nothing ever happens. They just same thing, right? And you'll see 1, 2, 3. You're like, okay, those are bots, right? And then now the fake left has tons and tons of bots and trolls. God knows where they're coming from. And then, but it does work, guys. Like there'll be like 2 or 3 real people who are, in my mentions, a lot of real people. And they'll be like, oh wow, it looks like there's a consensus building here that Cenk has been far too mean to Vladimir Putin. Well, maybe he has, I don't know. I mean, that might hurt Putin's feeling.
Well, all I want to say about this is that I think that you guys, the notion, I find it hard to believe that anybody involved with the CIA would get involved in social media to promote American interests in another part of the world, because I think they would just think that that was wrong. That's not the spirit of social media. So, I don't. Yeah, obviously we do it, and it blows. That's right. Yeah, it blows.
So I love people who are like, oh no, the CIA would never do it, and I love people who say, oh no, the Russian government would never do it. No, they're both angels. They've got hearts of gold. Okay.
Yeah.
And to Waz's point, giant corporations that stand to gain from influencing the political discourse in America, they would never do it. No.
Amazon just did it with the union drive. They literally just did it.
Yeah,
they got caught with the fake accounts.
That's right, but it's going to cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't see a company like Amazon spending that kind of money. Where are they going to get it? Right?
Yeah. God forbid they should spend it on bathroom breaks.
Yeah.
And by the way, the guys who invented this are the vulture capitalists, right? So the guys who would buy up a bad debt of places like Argentina and all over the world. Argentina just happens to be a very famous example of it. And then they manipulate American media. And media in Argentina into forcing them to pay. So, oh my God, this government is going to ruin Argentina. They're driving the economy south. Or they got all this like overwhelming propaganda. And that was in the old days too. They did it just through old media, right? Let alone social media. You think those vulture capitalists aren't doing that now? Oh my God, God knows how many. See, that's why they don't need the CIA to do coups anymore. They still try every once in a while, right? But you can just do it through media because you just influence people enough until you get what you want. And look, again, I still call myself a capitalist, but there ain't anybody better than capitalists at manipulating the media to get what they want. Let's keep it real. And that's the bad side of capitalism, obviously. I'll get to the good side later. But look here, I'll give you one example of that, right? Of the misconception that people have. I think it's both. Well, there's nothing good about it, but and that also is a warped reality. Like progressives don't understand finance at all, and finance doesn't understand progressives at all. Progressives understand finance way better than finance understands progressives, but there's still like silly misunderstandings. Like they had a segment on the other day with Steve Ratner and another Goldman Sachs executive. Not Steve Ratner is a very wealthy hedge fund guy or whatever particular kind of fund that he does, and he's ostensibly a Democrat quite literally a corporate Democrat, goes in and out of these corporate Democratic administrations, had influence in the Obama administration, and they're doing a segment, and the business reporter is like, what are we going to do about wages going up? This is terrible. It could cause inflation and it could hurt the stock market a little bit. Are you guys worried about, like, are you grabbing up, companies that are immune to wage growth problems, like, that they, and are you dumping stocks that have low margins because the wage growth will affect their margins and hurt their profitability, et cetera? On the one hand, they're like, Ratner once or twice mentioned, like, wage growth theoretically okay for real people, but anyway, let's get back to the main topic here, et cetera. And they live in a world so detached from the reality of the rest of us. They don't think it's offensive at all to talk for 8 straight minutes about how terrible wage growth will be if, God forbid, you should share a tiny bit of the wealth with employees, right?
Yeah. And I just want to point out there's another term for wage growth, pay raises, right? Yeah. Like, but it's interesting that they found something, wage growth. That sounds innocuous. Well, you wouldn't want to stop. I'm a guy. I don't know. I'm neutral on wage growth, but I'm pro pay raise.
But on the other hand, I don't know about progressives, but Democrats often have a non-realistic way of looking at money, right? So here's what I mean by that. They will then look at those folks having that conversation and go, they're immoral. No, that's like, no, the heart of the problem is the system, right?
Yep.
So if you build a system where they are driven to maximize profit, you will get nothing but people driven to maximize profit. You will get nothing else. And to think anything else is very, very silly, right? And so you got to rebuild the system. Just calling those particular people, those 2-3 people, immoral misses the point. If it wasn't them, it'd be somebody else, because they must maximize profit.
That's right. That's right. Well, what I'm curious about is what was different, because everybody acknowledges that it was different, and you would know better than I can't answer these questions. First of all, are there any other kind of funds other than hedge funds?
Oh yeah, there's private equity, there's growth equity.
I got it, but those are but I'm talking about language. Like, I love language, wage growth. Like, that's a choice to call it that. But none of those others have fund in the title colloquially. Thank you, Ben.
I see.
Yeah, like if you run a fund, it's a hedge fund. Nobody runs a, like there's no other. I don't know. I'd like to know. I don't know. I don't. It just seems like that's the most popular kind of fund, is the hedge fund. What was different in the 70s, right? I mean, we romanticize it a little bit, the business part of it, and 60s, 70s, all throughout. Where, of course, I mean, it's not like we invented the shareholder in the Reagan era, right? When we started getting, when greed became good, to quote Gordon Gekko, right? Mm-hmm. But what was the circumstance that had you settle for less to your shareholders? Because obviously we're gonna pay our people, and then we're gonna, but we're gonna give you a little bit. You're gonna get some. It's gonna be your investment in this company, your stock that you hold in this company is gonna be worthwhile, right? But now it has to be maximized, so we got to fire people. That's basically what it is, right? I mean, we have this, or we can't fire people, but these people can't be, and I think this is going to be a big part of the answer. These people can't be unionized. We can pay a lot of people a little, or we can pay some people a little bit more, but then we're going to have to let a bunch of people go. When did that happen? Why did it happen? And is the answer just unions?
No. I think that, sure, of course, unions are a big part of it, but I think there's two much bigger factors involved. But before we get there, let's note that hedge fund it's both a disastrous name and a fun name at the same time. First of all, fund sounds fun because it's got the word fun in it. You can't spell fun without fun. So on the other hand, hedging, it sounds disastrous. Like, it sounds not disastrous, but like really boring. Like, hey, what do you do for a living? I hedge. I don't know. I could maybe. But I'm not positive. I hedge for a living, right? So and they're boogeymen, but really all they do is they take people's really wealthy people's money or institutions' money, and then they invest in the stock market. So it doesn't have to be evil. And I know some of my best friends are hedge funders who are not evil. But what are they looking to do? They're looking to maximize profit. And then we say, oh well, that's evil, right? And sometimes the way that they do it is very evil, right? So but you have to look at it holistically. What makes sense, what doesn't. I know I'm asking a lot. Okay. So,
yeah, but also, Jake, I think it's important because Ben's question is a great one. This is not something that just happens overnight. It's a long process by which they did this, right? It's not just union busting. You gotta deregulate every single American industry possible, invent all the tax loopholes possible to the point where they pay no taxes anymore. And that's basically just a wealth transfer from us to them. And it's just, they've been doing it over a long period of time to the point where now, like, what is the point of republicanism? They were in power for 4 years, had every single branch of government, and all they did was cut taxes. They did nothing else. They won. They got every single thing they ever imagined that they could have back in the 70s when they sort of started this process. But they all go hand in hand. The way the tax rate or the corporate tax rate has fallen, the union busting, the deregulation, it's all of a piece,
Yeah,
and
that's the answer.
Yeah, right. That's the answer. But I mean, I know, but it's also part of the. I guess I was looking at it more not from the scientific perspective, but from the literature perspective. Like, how did they do it? Like, because it's a feeling too, right? And part of it is we talked about is the idea that you don't nobody criticizes capitalism, right?
Yeah.
That's not in mainstream American thought. Capitalism is great. It's what made America great, and it's not to be questioned. And so there's some different mindset from guys who were around and running the show in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and into the beginning of the 80s. And now it's different, and it's sad. And I'm sure, of course, the deregulation and union busting.
No. Let me be more specific, though.
Yeah.
There's a very, very specific answer, and in fact, it's a giant part of my book. So I won't get into all the details. And some of you have heard me say this before, but part one of the answer is. Lewis Powell wrote a memo in 1971. He was a lawyer for the Chamber of Commerce, and he said he was a community organizer, and his community was business, the business community. And he wrote them a memo saying, "You schmucks, I don't know if you know this, you have a lot of money. You know what you should do? You should pull it together and buy the government." And then he laid out how you could buy the government, and not just the government, but change the culture. So he talked about taking over the education system, taking over the courts, taking over every branch of our society. And if you read it back then, they were getting their asses handed to them. Ralph Nader was running roughshod, and throughout the memo, he's like, this goddamn Raider, Nader's Raiders. This Nader guy is killing us, right? And he's like, we are so ineffectual. It's hilarious because he sounds like a modern day progressive talking about how much the Democratic Party sucks. So Nixon reads the memo and goes, well, that's a really good idea. Taking over the courts, that's a brilliant idea. You, Lewis Powell, you wrote the memo, you're on the Supreme Court, literally. So then Lewis Powell goes on the Supreme Court and is the deciding vote in two Supreme Court decisions that change everything. Buckley v. Vallejo and Bellotti versus First National Bank of Boston. So that says corporations they take an old wrong standard of corporations are people. They say, but now corporations can spend unlimited money and they can spend it on politicians. Okay, good night, Irene, it's over. After that, Tony Coelho comes in. Coelho is running the DCCC at that point. That's the
Tony Coelho.
Coelho, however you
sure.
pronounce it. And he's actually a guy that sticks around for decades. and he's the guy who goes and tells everybody, we can take corporate cash now, and absolutely positively destroys the Democratic Party. Now, if it wasn't him, it would have been someone else. But it is him, and it totally worked because it's short term. Do you want the money or you don't want the money? I'm in the middle of a race. I need the money. Give me the money. What do I need to do? Well, it comes with strings. And the strings are deregulation, lower taxes, and Woz, you're a tiny bit off. You said they got only one thing passed: tax cuts. They also got deregulation through the executive orders. And so the two main goals, deregulation. So now and tax cuts. So when you do
and real quick, and as many federal judges in 4 years as Obama got in 8, so a lifetime of lawyers who are going to be there at 2060, 2070, some of them who will be ruling on these cases, and we know how they'll be ruling.
Still executing them in the memo from 1971, take over the courts, etc. And what does the deregulation get you? Well, one of the things it gets you is you deregulate the media, so that leads to tremendous consolidation, which then leads to 4, 5, 6 major media companies that run the whole country. And what are those companies? They are giant, multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporations. And lo and behold, those multi-billion-dollar corporations like the corporate agenda, and that is and then they take their tremendous corporate bias and they come up with a new word for it. It's called objective, and that's what happened in this country. Now, culturally, for the second part of the answer, for the stock market and corporate America, et cetera. In the old days, the country was run by skull and bones, right? So that's a little metaphorical. It's also a little literal, right? But there was an actual club of people. They would tap each other on the shoulder to get admitted. It was real, right? And Yale would be a feeder for the State Department, the CIA, and the corporate world. And the Dulles brothers would start any war you wanted, so that their friends and brothers in the business community can make more money off of bananas. But don't worry, Honduras is striking back by taking over our social media now. Good for them. Anyway, but nowadays the club is gone and it's replaced by something both better and worse. It's replaced by a machine. The invisible hand of the market over time worked. And what it did was it built this machine that I call the greed machine, okay? And that greed machine got really efficient. So if there was anyone who varied from the course, in the old days, Bob knew John and they went to school together, but they were both still human. And so Bob could have emotions, but he was in the club. So John and I'm running out of male names for no reason at all.
Phil, let me throw you a Phil.
Yeah, Phil and Joe,
Ryan.
Yeah, they all knew Bob, and so they didn't want to regulate against Bob too much. They tolerated him a little bit. Oh, Bob's good to his workers, dummy. Come on, Bob, get in here. Okay, and snap a towel at him, throw a little whiskey in his face. Bob's good to his workers, right? And that happened. They were real people, right? Now, you must get 15% return every year at a minimum. If you don't, you'll be fired. So the machine hums on ruthlessly, mercilessly, right?
I mean, it is to go back to, I'm gonna go back to my second reference of in the last 5 years only about Gordon Gekko. I mean, it makes the airline takeover in Gordon Gekko in Wall Street, that was well done, Oliver Stone. Like that was it. That's a little microcosm of because when you were talking about Bob's a good guy. I'm thinking about Martin Sheen, right, at the airline. That's a good guy. He's all right. Just we'll work something out with him. We'll let him keep out. And then eventually, no, it's okay. Yeah, he's a good guy, but we got no choice, right?
Yeah. I always remember that
shareholders.
Yeah, I always remember that executive at, I forget if it was United Health, but it was one of the biggest, it might be the biggest insurer in California. And they jacked their individual rate up by 39% one year. And she went public and said, we can't do this. People can't afford it, and then they won't have insurance, and some percentage of them will die. And everybody's like, oh, look at that, an executive being patriotic and caring about people, and they celebrated her for a second. And then I forget if it was 2 days or 2 weeks later, fired. No, the machine does not like you giving away its profits. It's built on greed. And so you might be wondering, if you're paying this much attention, why in the world do you still call yourself a capitalist? Because the markets are inevitable. The question is, are you going to check them or are you not going to check them? Okay, that's why I think democratic socialism is a misnomer. It should be democratic capitalism. And the founding fathers had a lot of things wrong, but they had a lot of things right too. And one of them was, they were like, you should check business interests, corporations. They will run out of hand. Make sure you do not let corporations run out of hand. And we forgot, and we did. And so democracy was supposed to check capitalism, and I think it can again. So anyway, before you get into it, Ben, I'll do a small plug because now the book is almost done.
I was just gonna say, don't even bother because the joke's on you. Now I don't have to buy the book.
I assure you, there are painstaking details in there. You'll enjoy the way I wrote it. I hope. But it was painful for me to acquire all the information. Anyway, justicescomingbook.com if you want to pre-order, justicescomingbook.com. All right, so we were doing this part live and I was supposed to go through these, but there's 2 minutes left in the live show. So let me give a shout out to Sincerely Scully, who just became a member by hitting the join button below on YouTube. That's a nice tie into the baseball conversation we started with. And post-traumatic South disorder wrote in the member section, why does Ben have enhanced interrogation lighting?
Yeah, I don't know. Ben's tried to fix it, but I don't know what's going on. They're not that bright. I don't understand what's going on. I don't know what's happening.
Okay, it's okay. And then this is a really fun question that Old School's broken up into 2 episodes now. The bonus episode is just for members, which we're gonna go to in a minute. If you wanna become a member, tyt.com/join, and that way you can get Old School. And I'm not gonna read your handle, even though you're a member, but this will answer this in the member section because of your question. Says, hey Cenk, I'm in a pickle, please help. I got a job offer to work for Kenneth Copeland. Remember him, he's the crazy televangelist guy?
Sure,
Kenneth Copeland as a video technician. My starting salary would be twice as much as my current job. I hate Copeland and I'm not religious at all. And I spent my whole life trying to get into broadcasting. Should I take the job? This is like a board game, what a better version of a board game question. So whoever you are, wink, wink, not trying to give away your identity, we will answer that in the members only episode of Old School. And 5th grade graduations, are they a thing? Should we go or should we boycott them?
Can I ask before we go, because it's the live section, because Waz had no reaction to the conclusion of the Sixers Hawks, which I of course switched to when I saw that it was a 1-point game with 40 seconds to play. And it was very dramatic, with a couple of big defensive plays and then a great look at the end that would have tied it, or a good look at the end. And nothing there was no reveal whatsoever. It was well done. That's all I'm saying.
You don't want to play poker with me, Ben.
No, I know. That was good. I'm not gonna. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, and I actually want to ask Waz a little bit about his childhood too. We'll never fit all that in, but we'll try. tyt.com/join. We'll see you guys there. All right, thanks for watching this free clip of Old School. Don't forget to become a TYT member today for the rest of the show and for more exclusive content throughout the network. Join now at tyt.com/join.